All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a very special edition of the Aroma Specialist group coaching class. And if you are a member, you know that we have these classes every week. Right now, it's every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I just want to remind everybody that's here live with me, and you guys can remind each other in chat once I get going on the presentation, that this particular issue of the class is going to be made public for free. And I don't normally do that because you guys pay a membership to be a part of these classes every week, but this is such a special topic, close to my heart because of Ashley and her family being my family too. And just having other close friends too, who are dealing with family members that have some of these symptoms. There are many that still are being tested. And so with that being the case, it was just a heart project that we said, you know what, let's do a class and just make it free for everybody. So that's what we're doing with this. This one will be made public and we'll leave it that way. So you guys will be able to share it as much as you want. But just keep in mind that because it's public, you know, if you take your camera off, which, you know, I love to see your face, but I know how that is since it's going to be public. We appreciate it. Oh yeah, no problem. I'm so excited to do it. Yeah, so any questions that you ask or anything like that, it'll be out there public. Now, I do have the ability to edit stuff. So get in the moment, enjoy the class. Don't worry about the fact it's being recorded. If we come across a subject or a conversation that you decide, you know what, I don't really want that public, just tell me as soon as possible, because I'll probably have the public version out as of tomorrow. Okay. So let's get going. All right, I will share my screen. You guys know the deal. If you are not seeing or hearing me or whatever, take yourself off and mute and just tell me, because I'm going to be in keynotes, I won't be able to see you guys. Okay. And as people come in, you guys can just always chat each other if somebody's off mute or something like that. Just, you know, just send a chat to them and just let them know, help me out there. All right. Let's get going. So we are talking about ADHD and autism spectrum. So there's so many things involved in that. My goodness, we would not be able to cover everything if we wanted to in this hour, but I wanted to give you some references because these are some things that you guys can do your own homework. Those of you who have family members that have been diagnosed with ADHD or with any portion of the autism spectrum, you already probably are inundated with information. A lot of this information is for those of you who maybe have a new diagnosis or you are not sure if you should even be, you know, get tested and what have you. And so we just wanted to have a little place to open up the discussion. So these were some great references for me. Of course, you know, I'm an aromatherapist, I'm a holistic health practitioner. So some of these things are covered lightly in our coursework and in our classroom. So we've learned some things about it. So I'm bringing that to the table for you guys, but also did some extra research. Clinical Aromatherapy is an excellent book. It really is for aromatherapists and people in the medical community. So it's not an easy read, but it's a really nice resource. That white paper up there at the top was really helpful by this doctor who wrote about ADHD and essential oils and in a holistic approach. He gave, I think it's a him, gave some really great detailed information. So it's sprinkled through the information that we're going to talk about today. These were the resources that we used. And so the purpose of the class today is, again, to kind of give a little bit of an overview, but primarily to give some encouragement and support to families who are dealing with the symptoms. So this is a disorder. ADHD is a disorder. Those who have the autism or anywhere on the autism spectrum, it is a disorder, but you know, these are also very special individuals. Those of us who have these members in our family, they're very smart, they're unique, and we love them so much, but there are some parts of their personality and this disorder where we recognize, you know what, this is a disorder. It is something that can be disruptive. It can be upsetting when you don't know what's going on or how to deal with it. It can be upsetting to the individual. It can be upsetting to the family because you're just not sure how to work with it. So there are some symptoms that we're going to talk about how we can offer some support. That's the whole purpose of today's discussion. I'm not a doctor. I'm an aromatherapist. I'm a certified holistic health practitioner. And so that's how I'm coming at it. I'm also not a parent, so I won't have that same exact feeling that you parents have who have children displaying these symptoms or who have been diagnosed. You are the only ones that can make decisions on their health. I'm just bringing the aspect that I am trained for, and that's just the holistic approach and a little bit of background. I'm always here for support. So your emotional support, your information, and how you can use aromatherapy to support you and your family. That's the bottom line. Nothing that we talk about should be used for treatment or diagnosis. It definitely shouldn't replace what your doctors have told you. Work very closely with them. I'm just an extra support. So just keep that in mind as you listen to the information. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the overview, and give me a second. I just need to move some of Zoom's nice little, I actually can see you guys, which is, I never know why sometimes I can see you, sometimes I can't, but I need to move that out of the way so that I can see my slides. Okay, so this is just, again, a little overview of some of the, gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I hate it when I have to go back and forth like this. Technology, I love it and I hate it. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And the symptoms are varied. And so in drilling down on this, you guys, and really researching and studying, and obviously those of you who are living with this diagnosis, you know more than I do, but really it's such a vast difference in the symptoms that are displayed. And then there are some really common ones. So some of the common ones was inattention, hyperactivity, impulsive behavior. So sometimes when parents are, or even, keep in mind that adults are being diagnosed with this every day. This is not just a children thing. It's just that people have become more aware. And so adults are now being tested as well. So whether it's a child or adult, what happens is it becomes a point where we all get fidgety sometimes. We all get anxious. We all get a little hyper depending on what's going on. And we're all impulsive. We all have a variety of these things. With this disorder, what happens is it starts to become disturbing. It starts to become an issue because everyday life is now disrupted again and again and again with meltdowns, with, just an inability to have self-control. And so this is what people are finding with the brain circuitry and what's happened with these diagnoses. More recent work has linked ADHD with poor neuronal activity. And you see there it's talking about cerebral loops and the prefrontal cortex. You don't need to understand all that unless you just want to look it up, you're fine. What I want to really stand out for you is that conversation around cerebral and cortex. Because what we know for sure about essential oils is that it has a direct effect and connection to the limbic system and all the parts within the limbic system. You can look that up, and to the cortex. So this is important information, and it's really exciting when we start talking about options and support when dealing with the symptoms that come along here. Let me just load that a little bit there. Okay, and so here are some similarities, because the truth is right now ADHD and autism spectrum are different. ADHD is not a part of the spectrum as far as what's being said right now at the time of this recording. But they both refer to a broad range of conditions and characterized by challenges of what we just talked about, hyperactivity, social skills. With autism, there's also the repetitive behaviors. Sometimes speech is repeated depending on when they are on the spectrum. I just worked with a young lady recently who, you talk to her and she just repeats what you say. So it's just kind of, a broad spectrum, and some don't speak at all, okay? So autism spectrum disorder and ADHD are related in some of these ways. Again, it's not part of the spectrum, but what doctors and researchers are seeing is that some of the behaviors are similar, and they're starting to see some of the behaviors are similar, some of the treatments are helping both situations, all right? Another way the autism and ADHD are related is that they share genetic risk. So this was really interesting. So a person with autism has an increased chance of having a close relative with ADHD and developing another disorder. So it's not uncommon at all for someone to be on the autism spectrum and also have ADHD, or to have ADHD and later be diagnosed with being somewhere on the spectrum, or to have a parent that has ADHD or to be somewhere on the spectrum, or a grandparent, or some kind of close relative. So if you have gotten that information or you've heard that, it's not unusual. So this is what's happening, and this is what we're finding out about the situation here. So how often is it diagnosed? Several million people right now, and I believe this was just in the US, I'm not sure, so I have to double check that portion of it, are currently being treated for either ADHD or autism. Millions, several million. And here's what's interesting, and I actually, this percentage came from the research I did for this class, but I've actually heard higher percentages. So this is saying that up to 30% of students ages 6 to 12 have been diagnosed with either ADHD or somewhere on the autism spectrum, 30%. So that kind of puts in your mind, think about schools. Think about how many children are in a school of those age ranges, and 30% of the students being diagnosed. So can you see that it's getting to be not so much of a rare thing? And, you know, in the times that we live in, it's not completely crazy. We understand that things have changed, and with technology and with our food, and that's just a whole nother subject that maybe we'll have a class on one day. Why so many are now being diagnosed. Some people say it's because, well, back in the day, we really didn't know, you know, we had these same symptoms, but, you know, people didn't know to even test for it. And that could be the case too. I have, dealing with people just one-on-one, have heard from educators, a number is up as high as 50% of children in their school that had been, at least their parents being spoken to about the fact that they would need to be tested. They were recommending that they be tested because they were overly, you know, not just, you know, all children have their times when they can't sit still and be, you know, pay attention. But this was a case where over and over again, they're seeing that they're requesting parents test their children because of the symptoms that they're seeing. So what are some of the symptoms? Hyperactivity, inattention, shorter than usual attention. And it was interesting, they broke these symptoms up as if, you know, they're different. So not being able to sit still, they called it self-stimulating behavior. So some where they'll be rocking, some where they, you know, they're tapping somewhere on themselves. They can't just, they are not able to not move. Okay, so it's that hyperactivity, not being able to pay attention. You can be telling them something. They even timed some of these children. Okay, they were able to pay attention for 2 minutes. And then after inhaling some oils, okay, it went to 5 minutes. So not a huge difference, but they noticed some improvement in some of these studies. We're not going to go through all the studies, but that was just one that I just wanted to bring out there. So easily distracted. So focused for a minute and, oh, that bottle's there. That's that. And this is this. And you can say one thing and the mind is gone somewhere else. Impulsivity. So again, we're all impulsive sometimes, but when it comes to a case where, okay, well, this is now concerning. This is now disrupting our day every day, almost. And so when we start to hear it become like that, then that's when people are starting to get diagnosis. And poor performance in school. Here's the thing. Most of these children are really smart. They're really smart. So why are they not performing well in school? They can't pay attention. They can't sit down long enough. They can't focus enough. They're anxious and needing to be doing something else, and they're not able to focus. And so that translates into poor performance in school. Social skills, it could cause them a great deal of anxiety, especially when we're going into the autism portion. A great deal of anxiety being around that many people. There could be something in the classroom that sets them off. And all of that causes them not to be able to perform as well in school. Well, how are they diagnosed? There needs to be a detailed neuropsychological evaluation, a health assessment by a healthcare provider, including medical history and testing. And I think that got cut off, but it was talking about both verbal and nonverbal tests that are done before a complete diagnosis can be done, a detailed assessment. So here's what I wanted to kind of say here. In the research that I did, I found that some had kind of just gone to their general practitioner, or maybe even in some cases, the educators were diagnosing the children and saying, you know, your child has ADHD. And then they were kind of just taking it at that, and maybe, you know, trying to send their child to a special school or that kind of thing. But what really needs to happen is the educators, yeah, they've become really skilled at noticing certain behaviors, but you don't want to rely on them for a diagnosis. You want to make sure that a detailed neuropsychological evaluation has been done by a healthcare provider. And my recommendation, just as a holistic coach and someone who works with healthcare professionals, find a specialist. You know, find someone who specializes so that they really have all the data and all the current data. You're going to feel better about the diagnosis and about the conversation in general. So you have options. And so especially when this is a new diagnosis, so if you're listening to this and this is a recent diagnosis, or you're not finished with the testing yet and you're getting real anxious, I want you to just breathe, because you have options, your family member has options, and everything is going to be okay. So just breathe. All right. There's medication, there's social skills training, there's the holistic approach, which we're talking about tonight. There's counseling. So there is a whole host of things being done to help individuals and their families who have this diagnosis. Keep that in mind. Hang on in there with us as we go through this information. Here's something to consider. Now, as we go over this, I don't want you guys to panic, especially if your children are on medication or that's the next step for you. Listen, medication has helped so many people. I'm not a doctor. I can't speak about the medication at all. All I can tell you is about the research that's been done and give you something to think about. This is something you probably already know. Your healthcare provider will go over this information. So you just ask questions to the psychologist or to the healthcare provider who's taking care of your family member. So the information that I came across tells you these drugs here that are normally used, and I just highlighted the section that talks about the side effects. Because as people who are interested in a natural approach, these things frighten us, but you want to just talk to the healthcare provider about it, because the fact is, you'll see my note down there when it goes to the holistic approach. Medication has actually been studied a lot longer than the holistic approach that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so we're seeing some great results with the holistic approach, but sometimes it has to be in addition to something else. So I just want to bring that out as we talk about this a little bit. So you see they're highlighted that some of the effects from the most popular drugs, there could be more. You know, your doctor may have something else. But for the most popular one, we're noticing the side effects on the brain. There are side effects on the brain, the mind, behavior, that are similar to what the condition already is. So it's like intensifying it for some people, including psychosis, mania, drug abuse, and addiction. So further into this particular reference, it said that some, especially, you know, having begun the drugs at a young age, can become addicted, and they can then turn to other drugs. In fact, this particular drug of Ritalin is being used as a recreational drug. They grind it up and they inhale it as a recreational drug. So this is just something for you to be aware of. It's something for you to take to your doctor if they recommend one of these medications, and have them talk you through it. Don't let it scare you. Don't let it be where, you know what, I am not giving my child medication, or I'm not going to take it myself, because you don't know how it may affect you. And then having this information just gives you a little warning, just gives you something to think about, and gives you something to have a conversation with the doctor about. So just have that stuff in mind. Again, when it comes to holistic approach, what we find is that limiting sugar, and a lot of cases eliminating sugar, especially processed sugar, has been known to be effective. This is not in the slide, but I'm giving you this extra information. Food coloring, especially the yellow food dye, has been known to contribute to problems. So if if you're giving your child fake foods, which we all like this stuff. We like Cheetos, we like cheese flavored chips. I know I do. But those things are not real food, and the dyes have been known to aggravate the situation. So really allowing your children or yourself, if you're the one with the diagnosis or suspected diagnosis, to have whole foods. And it just means just the whole food, just not so much processed, not so much in a package. And if something is in a package, just take a look at it to see if sugar has been added, if some coloring has been added, and even in some cases where it'll say natural flavoring, we need to know what are those natural flavors. Is it truly a natural flavor? Sometimes those are an additive that they're calling a natural flavor. So just get real detailed on what's going into the body. And we just want it to be as whole as it possibly can, because any kind of chemistry is messing with the chemistry. Toxic chemicals is what we want to avoid. Okay. So those are some things that we know to be useful. Diet, essential oils, which we're talking about here, biofeedback. There's a lot of different things that are being done in the holistic approach. And yes, some great things are being seen, but as you're going to see with the case studies we go over next, very few members in the case study. It's still young, and it's in the research. So we still have years of research to help us out with this. Hold on, let me move back over to my slide. So here's how essential oils work. All right, so when essential oil is inhaled, whether you're using an inhaler, whether you're using we're going to go over delivery methods here in a minute. But the point is, it gets into the system, it's inhaled. The micro droplets are carried into the limbic system of the brain. This is important because a lot of what's happening, it's all in the brain. It's that limbic system, it's the hypothalamus, it is, which is the hormone command center shown there. The cortex is affected by essential oils. It gets carried into the lungs, the capillaries through the nose, through the lungs, enters into the circulatory system, through the capillaries, it's now into the blood system. We know that it does enter into the blood through testing, so we know for sure that it is getting into the blood system. Some essential oils contain high levels of constituents, such as sesquiterpenes, that dramatically increase the oxygenation and activity in the brain. This is a good thing. But we're going to go over some ways that everybody's different. So some of the oils that, have dramatic results for some are not going to work for some others and could even make the situation worse. But this is what I wanted you to understand, that as you're using essential oils, as you're getting them to your body, they are going into the brain. They're in your bloodstream. They are in the lungs. They are in the circulatory system. Okay. So not to be taken lightly. They are definitely have a place in holistic therapies for you and your family. And you just want to, of course, make sure your doctor is okay with you introducing essential oils, but they certainly are known to be helpful. Let's look at this case study. This was done in 1937, you guys, way back in the day. This was conducted by someone named Charles Bradley, and he was the first to actually notice that amphetamines calmed hyperactive children. Amphetamines are stimulants. So you wouldn't think that a stimulant would be what a child would need, but a lot of the medications that are being used are stimulants. And so it's believed that they help because they actually increase the dopamine levels in the brain. So the idea is some of the hyperactivity, some of the social misbehavior, some of the impulsivity is happening because the serotonin, the dopamine, the transmitters in the brain, there's not enough of it. And so with the stimulant, it's able to actually calm them because it's actually kind of balancing things out. This explains why some of the essential oils that you would think, okay, a child is hyper, lavender, a child is hyper, chamomile. And while some of those do work in ADHD and in the autism spectrum, we're hearing that it works. I'm hearing it from individuals that I work with. I'm seeing it in the studies. Sometimes they do work. They help them to get better sleep. They help them to calm down. But in many cases, you guys, they're not working because they are sedating. It can make them more hyper because it actually is sedating to the central nervous system. And in some cases, they need something that is going to wake them up, to be more of an uplifting oil. We're going to go over both. This was another trial that told us something similar. This was 3 14 to 16-year-old males. They were psychiatric outpatients. They had been diagnosed with ADHD. They were not on the autism spectrum. They were given Roman chamomile, and a slight difference when they looked at the baseline for their inattention and immaturity factors. They showed that there was a slight improvement with the hyperactivity and with these things with Roman chamomile. Again, Roman chamomile is sedative. It was, in this case, being used as an antidepressant. So it can be used for that purpose for some individuals. What this is telling us is we gotta see what works for our folks, and we gotta see what works for us. Vetiver was just one of the stars of this whole thing. Vetiver, and as you'll see in my recommendations, rosemary, were kind of the ones that stood out for me as really, really significantly helpful in multiple cases. Okay, so this is another study. This was done, again, this was ADHD children from 6 to 14. And vetiver was shown to improve brain activity. So they EEG brain scan, they were able to see an improved brain activity and actual reduction of symptoms in those subjects. Okay, so we want to understand that vetiver is really, really great. What's interesting about vetiver too, it's a very interesting oil that it is known to help people with depression and anxiety and insomnia. So it's an important oil when we're talking about some of the symptoms that are happening in the autism spectrum, because a lot of times there's anxiety there. So that's being treated. There's depression. And so sometimes, there's different medications for each thing and different oils for each thing. Vetiver is one of the unique ones that it allows for several of those things to be addressed in one oil. There were similar results in cedarwood, but they didn't feel like statistically it was significant. It was a smaller number of subjects. And I think this was the same group though. Yeah, there were 6 of them. And because they got everybody just about got good results with vetiver. And with cedarwood, there were like 2 or 3 of them that got good results. So they felt like it wasn't a significant enough test. So cedarwood is something that you guys, it's available to you to try. In your case with your family member or your friend to just see, or yourself to see if cedarwood is something that will be useful. Cedarwood is, and typically with wood oils, they are grounding. So it is possible that in a case of, again, hyperactivity, inattention, can't get it together, can't focus, that we would want to use a resin or a wood oil. So we're talking cedarwood or frankincense or myrrh or root oils like vetiver. That we want to introduce and see how it works for them. Interesting enough, lavender, so this is Lavandula angustifolia or officinalis. This is not spike lavender. So when we're talking about lavender in here, it showed no improvement. So while some of you are getting results, especially on the autism spectrum, for relaxation, for better sleep, it's not necessarily going to work. So if you have tried that and it didn't work, don't assume that, this isn't going to work for, essential oils are not going to work. It could just be that lavender or chamomile or some of those more sedating oils that you use, that you need to go to the opposite and try some of the stimulating oils. Okay. What I do want to say too, and this is kind of a good place to address this, is that those who are caretakers, parents, spouses, best friends, of people who have these symptoms, you need to also take care of yourself. So in you're going to see some anxiety in yourself. You're going to see some depression. You're going to see some difficulty focusing because you're kind of riding this wave with this kid or with your spouse. And so you need to understand that maybe you need some lavender. Maybe it's not going to work so much for them, but maybe you could use some lavender or some cedarwood because you're not sleeping and you're not resting and you're not being able to focus throughout the day. So this is something, as we talk about their symptoms, I want you to be thinking about you as well, because if you conk out and you lose it, then it's going to affect everybody, right? I know sometimes it's so hard for us to take care of ourselves because we're like, I don't have time for that. I got to take care of my child. I got to take care of my spouse. They need you to be okay. They need it. So really, really do take care of yourself. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more at the end. Here's some more info. This one, we had 4 children with ADHD. They were being tested during a piano lesson. Now, my goodness, whoever of you have taken piano lessons, you know, maybe this is why I didn't do so well in piano lessons when I was a child. I hated it, and I can still remember. And I didn't want to sit and try to do those keys, and it's like, oh, pull my hair out, whereas my sister did great. So these were just 4 children tested with lavender and rosemary. When lavender was diffused, they got worse. More restless, inattentive, couldn't do it. When rosemary was diffused, 3 of the 4 children were able to be attentive. So you can see why rosemary and vetiver are the stars for me when talking about using essential oils, dealing with these symptoms. Rosemary and vetiver. So, and these weren't the only studies where rosemary showed up. It's the ones I'm sharing with you, but you can do your research too and just see over and over again, you're going to hear rosemary. Now, the constituent in rosemary that's thought to be causing this great effect is 1,8-cineol. Interestingly, cedarwood also contains 1,8-cineol. It's just that rosemary has a higher concentration. So some other oils that have that are like your eucalyptus. Any eucalyptus is going to have 1,8-cineol. Ravensara has 1,8-cineol. These are some of the oils that were common to us that we know. You can try any of those oils, but rosemary has really, in several case studies, proven to be quite helpful. So here are the recommendations from me to you as an aromatherapist based on the studies that I did. These are some that you can certainly try. These are some of the stimulating oils where if you have found that the chamomiles and the relaxing oils are not working, switch it up and try some of these. Lemon, orange, lime, grapefruit. You can get a blend, a pre-made blend from Young Living called Citrus Fresh, which is really excellent. It smells amazing. And it may help them with depression. It may help them with being anxious. Even though it's an uplifting oil, it may also help them to focus. We're going to talk about delivery systems here in a minute. Helichrysum. Helichrysum is known to be balancing and an antidepressant. So understand, a lot of times there is some depression happening with these children and adults as well, displaying these symptoms. What I love about Helichrysum is that it also is known to have a balancing effect. So if they're hyper 1 minute and really down next, and they can't stand this, and they can't stand that light, and they can't stand this and that, Helichrysum is known to just kind of bring some balance in there. Here's a good time to interject this too, is that you want to be introducing these oils on a regular basis, not just when a meltdown is happening, not just when you're having an episode, but on a regular basis, on a daily basis, in different ways you want to be introducing these oils, okay? Again, rosemary, eucalyptus, ravensara, peppermint, bergamot, and bergamot mint. So bergamot and bergamot mint are 2 completely separate oils. Bergamot mint is not a mixture of bergamot and peppermint. It's its own plant that just happens to be named bergamot mint. And it has been known to be really, really useful for children with ADHD. So that's something that you can try. Calming oils that have been known to work, we saw in some of those studies, and I've seen individually too, Roman chamomile, German chamomile. German chamomile particularly has been known to help with anger and frustration. So if in your family, that's one of the things that are being displayed, that's one of the symptoms, try adding German chamomile to something you're already using, or try just diffusing German chamomile on its own and see what the response is. I highly encourage you guys to use these oils kind of one-on-one as you're testing, so you can get an idea of which one of the oils are working well as what scents they like. And then we can start talking about mixtures. If you come to me and I'm having a one-on-one with you, I'm going to encourage you to do that. Let's try them one-on-one, and then I'll start talking to you about mixtures and how much of what to put in with what. Okay. Vetiver. Vetiver is actually listed under one of the calming oils, and yet it was really highly effective with ADHD. Lavender, patchouli. I got lavender in there twice, sorry. Neroli, cedarwood, and frankincense. Okay, so these are all known to be calming, grounding oils. The frankincense, the cedarwood, sandalwood could have gone in here too. Any kind of wood or root oil, they're going to be grounding. They're typically helps the body and the brain to get grounded. You think about the root of a plant, and it's what gets in there. And I'm a person who's fluent in American Sign Language, so I sign a lot. And so this is how we would sign root. It's something that's in there because that's what goes in the ground. That's what takes the nutrients up and into the plant. Well, when we're getting those oils that are roots like vetiver, we're getting that same benefit, that it can root us, it can ground us, it can keep us from, pulling our hair out and jumping, all over the place. And it could potentially help in these situations too. You'd have to try and see. Grounding, same thing with the wood. Think about those giant cedarwood trees. Go and look at some pictures of cedarwood trees. Get some motivation, because when you look at that trunk, that wood trunk and how solid it is. And so when storms come, that's what grounds it. That's what keeps it together. And that's what we're taking in when we're using essential oils. So really, really important stuff to be putting into our bodies to help our minds, to help our bodies. And you guys who are caretakers, please keep those in mind for your care as well. Because as you're dealing with the storm of these symptoms and figuring it out, you may need to be grounded. So vetiver, frankincense, cedarwood, sandalwood, think of these things for yourself. Here's another reference from Suzanne Caddy, I think her last name is, on hydrosols. I love this book, Hydrosols, The Next Aromatherapy. You can get it from Amazon. She writes about some hydrosols that would be really great. Neroli and German chamomile hydrosols, either on their own or blended together, can be used in dealing with these symptoms, whether it be the hyperactivity or the social misbehavior. Hydrosols have been known to work. I have not personally used them on any of my clients for this, but this is a reference that I trust, and that's another thing that you can certainly try. Here's something to keep in mind too, when you're working with children ages 5 to 12, you can typically blend at 1% dilution is what we call it. That means if you're using a 1 ounce bottle, you're always going to use a carrier. So if you're using a 1 ounce, and I'm trying to show you a 1 ounce, this is a 1 ounce. You're going to fill that up with a carrier. And you're only going to put 5 to 6 drops of oils. So say we're using a stimulating oil and you decide to use citrus fresh. You could just use citrus fresh and put 6 drops of it in here, you're done. You could use 3 drops of lemon and 2 drops of orange. If you're working with me, I'm going to give you something specific based on what you tell me is happening. Rosemary, you could put 6 drops of rosemary and call it a day. Use that and just see what's happening. Same thing with eucalyptus, you can just use that. All right, and that's a 1 ounce. If you're doing an inhaler, you can use 10 drops. If you're diffusing, you can use 10 drops. And so we're not saying 10 drops of each oil, we're saying 10 drops total. So if you decide to put 3 oils together, you're going to break that up so that total drops is 10 in that inhaler. You're going to have that organic wick, soak that up. Let me see if I can find my inhaler. Yeah, hold on. I got my inhaler pieces all over. There we go. That's what it looks like. And so you're going to soak that up, just put it in a bowl or a cup or something like that. Soak it up with the oils, put it in the inhaler, and then have them inhale that several times a day. They can do that 3 to 5 times a day. And same thing with the diffuser. You can use up to 10 drops. With the diffuser, let's not have that go all day long and even through the night when they're sleeping. If you need it for them to get to sleep, fine, but go ahead and let that cut off after an hour or so. Let it cut off, you know, let the room air out. You just don't want that consistently going in. And it's not that it's toxic, it's non-toxic material, but it's chemistry like anything else. Remember, water is H2O. So it's not that it's toxic, but it is potent. And you want the body to absorb it and use it. That would just be like eating constantly all night. You know, just feeding. That's not good for the system. Your body can't digest when it's constantly feeding. So you want to turn that diffuser off after an hour or so. And then of course you can turn it back on. All right. All right. And here's another little pointer. Ask your children what scents draw them in. You know, kind of if they're feeling, you know, in a good mood or whatever, you can just kind of say, hey, you like this? So wave it around. I don't like that. Okay, you don't like that one. Okay, so let's try this. If they're in the mood to kind of do that, and just do it periodically. Just periodically, maybe when they're doing something else and maybe they need a distraction, you can just say, hey, you like that? Do you like that? Or you can just kind of put several oils in front of them. Just sit it in front of them and make it a playtime. Which one of these is cool to you? Find out, get pointers from them what they're drawn to. Our bodies and our brain know what to gravitate to sometimes. So let's see what they're intuitively drawn to with the oils and start with that. And then we can move on with other oils, but make them a part of the project, make it fun for them. We don't want them to feel like they're a problem. We want them to feel the love and feel the solution. And the more you guys are taking care of yourselves, the less you're going to be frustrated in those moments while you're trying to support them. Because believe me, they know when you're frustrated. You could be smiling and you could be like, okay, but they know, they feel that energy too. So it's important for you to get your energy right and your breathing into control and your mind right as you're dealing with them to help them to calm too. They're going to pick up on your energy. Okay, so here are some delivery systems. We just talked about it a little bit, but I just want to give you a list. Inhalers. So I showed you what that looked like. You guys can get those from Amazon. Aromatics International has them. Hydrosol sprays. Young Living has a few hydrosols we just introduced. Aromatics International has lots of hydrosols. If you get a hydrosol from somewhere like Whole Foods or something like that, just make sure I'm kind of wanting to move my fan closer to me. I'm hot. Okay. Make sure that it's either organic or it says wild harvested or that it's been tested, and ask me. Don't be afraid to ask me because I can tell you what tests and stuff like that to look for. Just be careful with what you're putting in and on your body. Creams, lotions for daily use. You can make therapy part of their everyday thing. So we all have to put lotion on every day. Why not make it a therapeutic lotion? You know, their shampoos, their deodorants, what they brush their teeth with. There's so many options for you to get these essential oils into their bodies. And it's difficult to get too much when you're doing it properly, kind of spacing it out. So go ahead and start incorporating different ones into their regimen because it's becoming a part of them. Just like after a while when they're having so much sugar or they're having these food colorings and stuff like that, and it's piling up and causing them problems, then these solutions can pile up and give them a positive effect. So use them in all these different ways. You can use diffuser jewelry. We have a designer here in our group, Emma Zills. So if you go over to, if you're on IG and you go to Over 50 Life, she has got, and tell me, Emma, if I said that wrong. She's got diffuser jewelry that you'll be able to order. And that's just a great way to have it on them. So bracelets, necklaces, you don't have to think about it. It's just there and they're inhaling it, whether they realize it or not, or pay attention to it or not. In their underwear, we had a mom in one of our case studies in my class that put it in that band part of their child's underwear. And she said, boy, they just got such great results. You want to make sure that it's not an oil that's irritating their skin. And this is a good point to tell you guys, like if you're using the citruses, especially like bergamot, vanilla citruses, the ones that have been steam distilled, phototoxicity is something we want to be aware of. What that means is that if you put it on the skin and then the person or the child is out in the sun, they can get a horrible burn. So this is not just like, oh, they got a little sunburn. It's a really, really drastic damaging of the skin. So you want to put it somewhere where it's not directly on the skin. So, and that underwear is great, and their socks, on the jewelry, even the jewelry, it could still cause a problem because if it's touching, you know what I'm saying? So that's just for the citrus ones. You want it a place where the child is not going to touch it a lot, especially if they're a younger one, or mentally they're younger and they just are going to touch it and maybe touch their eye, especially if you're using like peppermint or even rosemary. It could be, you don't want to get that, you know, and places they may put it. So it's an idea to kind of have it somewhere else. I'm sorry, I put that in there twice. Underwear, socks, other clothing. Bath blends. So vetiver is a really nice one to do for a bath. And try just the vetiver. You can try vetiver and lavender. Those are both really nice on the skin. Helichrysum is also really nice on the skin, and they're in our suggested list. So let them have a nice bath and just let them soak and play for a while. Just let them play. They don't know that they're having therapy. Just, you know, let them soak in there for a while, maybe even before bed, and see if that doesn't help with bedtime or focus time. You know, you could do that. Diffusers, of course, you can put it in a diffuser. You can get them their own diffuser for their room. Make it fun for them. Let them help you pick out a diffuser. You can order them online. I'm going to make sure, like if you guys are watching the recording of this on YouTube, there's a link in the description where you can go and order any of these oils, and you can also order any diffusers. If somebody, I want to stop and tell you this too, but if somebody shared this with you, ask them directly, because they can help you. Most likely they can help you get some really good quality oil and accessories. Okay. So you don't necessarily have to click on the link. Ask the person who sent you this video, because they will be more than happy to support you. Humidifiers, you can use it with a humidifier too. You can use it in the shower. You can have some steamy water where you can put like some eucalyptus. It smells amazing, and it just opens you up. It's a really, really nice way to shower, even if you don't do a bath. And on the humidifier or in the room while you're humidifying is a really nice way to get it delivered into your system. If the child is using weighted blankets, which are also known to be really helpful, especially for those on the autism spectrum, it's very calming for them. And you can put the essential oils on that weighted blanket, especially where they're going to snuggle right in there at the top. Let them pull that up and breathe that in. Okay. So, whoa, it went too fast for me. I wanted to tell you guys, yes, about the class. So we're coming to the end of the presentation now. Of course, there's going to be time for Q&A, so you guys can gear up your questions. If you haven't put them in chat already, this is a good time to put them in chat. But I want to invite everybody who's watching this to join us for a very special class on April 30th. Now, if you're watching this recording and it's past April 30th, you still have the ability to get access to the class, because that class is also going to be recorded and made available. And what you need to do if you want that, and it's after April 30th, you just need to send an email. Well, get on our email list and you'll get access to it. So you just go to the aromaspecialist.com, get on our mailing list, and you'll be able to get access to that natural anxiety relief class. If it is prior to April 30th, then you can actually join that class live. So you go to the aromaspecialist.com/upcoming events and register for the class. Do make sure that you register or you won't get access to it. Whether you are a member of Aroma Specialist or not, you have to register for the class in order to get access. Those of you who are members of my Aroma Specialist group coaching program, you get to have that class for free, and just check our Facebook classroom for the coupon code for that. Those of you who are not members, we invite you to become members. Go to the aromaspecialist.com, take a look at the different memberships and see if there's something supportive there for you. And we'd love to have you. In any case, when I do classes like this particular one is being offered for free, but most of them you pay for if you're not a member. As a member, you get the classes free, and there are also memberships that allow you to have one-on-one time, coaching time with me. And I love to be able to do that for you and support in that way as well. So if you have questions, I'm going to check chat here in a minute. If you're watching the recording, you can certainly put your questions right there in comments. I'll be checking to get those. And you can also send private messages to my office by going to sending an email to support@aromaspecialist.com. Okay. That is it for tonight. I want to thank you so much for being so attentive. I hope it was interesting for you guys. I hope that you got something out of it. And I'm now going to go over to chat and just see if there are any questions. Okay. Doesn't seem like there was we appreciate it, and it was tough logging in. Sorry about the tough logging in. But thank you for being here. If you don't have any questions, or if you want to ask privately, because this is being recorded and given out publicly, and you're a team member, you can just, an Aroma Specialist members, you can just put it in our private Facebook group or email me. You guys have my email, RENÉE@RENÉEHUGHES.com. And I'm happy to answer them privately. All right, that's it. And thank you so much for being here. Bye.